Okay, so welcome to the second half of 2.3 out of our workbook. We're going to actually begin on page 42, which is the warm-up for this section. We skipped this in our first video because the warm-up questions really refer to the second half that we're going to do today. So we're going to turn our workbooks to page 42, but we're not going to do all of them. We're just going to look at the important parts that's necessary for the part we're going to do. So we're only going to look at questions 3, 4, and 5. All right, so you can ignore the other ones. Now, I've put 3, 4, and 5 all on the same page here just so you can see them lined up because they're all referring to each other. So what we're going to do is we're going to be doing some estimating of prices and then calculating 15%. That's going to be a very valuable tool for what we're doing in this section. So you'll see different prices along here, and this is where we'll be calculating the 15%. So it says round each of these to the nearest dollar. We're going to really hope that we can do this without our calculator because when you're out at the restaurant and you're trying to calculating some of these estimates and prices, you probably won't have a calculator free right there. I know you'll have your phones, but it'd be much easier if you could just do a lot of this in your head. So let's practice on this one. $6.59. Is that closer to $7 or is it closer to $6? Hopefully you'll recognize that you would round up because the 5 tells you to round up, so does the 9. Tells you to round up to $7. Now, we're going to use that $7 and calculate 15%. And that's why we have all three of these together. So how do you calculate 15%? Well, the steps here suggest you're going to do 10% and then do 5%. So let's go off and see how we do the 10%. So if we're going from here to here, 10%, remember, is like multiplying by 0.10 or dividing by 10. But if you think back to the first section that we did in chapter 1, we did a lot of dividing by tens. And dividing by tens meant that you move the decimal place one spot. So 10% is moving the decimal place one spot over here. So $7 is going to move over one spot and be 0.7 or 70 cents. So that is 10% of this. Well, if we're going to go off and do 5%, well, how do we calculate 5% if we know what 10% is? Well, guess what? 5% is half of 10%. So all we have to do is take this number and divide it by 2. And if you have 70, half of 70 is 35. And so you've got 70 cents is the 10%, 35 is the 5%, and if you take those and add them up, you'll get 15%. So this is the little warm-up activity we're going to do here. Practice a couple of times, and then we'll use it in our next activity. Let's try another one. $12.40. The 40 cents, is that closer to $12 or closer to 13? Well, the 40 is less than 5, less than 50, so it's going to round down to $12. What's 10% of that? We're going to divide by 10 or change the decimal place one spot. So it goes from 12 to 1.2, which is $1.20. And half of $1.20 is 60 cents. The way I think of half of $1.20 is I think of half of $1 is 50 cents and half of 20 cents is 10. So 50 and 10 gets me 60 cents. The other thing you think of it is 12. What's half of 12? That's 6. So 60 cents. If you'd like, you can push pause now and try the last two on your own. And this would be good practice for the second part of this video. Okay, so let's see how you did. $7.68, the 68 cents is closer to $8, so you round up to $8. Divided by 10 or take 10% puts us at 0.8. And half of 80 cents is 40 cents. And then $23.44, the 4 rounds down, and it's closer to $23. Move one decimal place to the left is 2.3 or $2.30. And half of that, well, half of $2 is $1. Half of 30 cents is 15 cents. So that's $1.15. So there's a little bit of estimating that we're practicing in our head. And we're going to try and do a lot of the work today without using our calculator. We'll check it on our calculator, but we're going to try and do a lot without it. All right. So this whole video is on estimating your share of the bill. So we've already done page 43. So you're going to turn the page over and we're going to do page 44 and 45 today. So here's an example. Carlos, Nisa, and Henry all went to Kendra's kitchen and they get this bill. And a lot of times in a quick diner or a kitchen or a restaurant or something, they just put all the stuff into one bill. Okay, and you have to calculate it yourself. Some restaurants will take the time to put it on separate bills, but often you get it all put on one bill. and you need to try to decide how to break it up. So you see that this bill comes, and it's about $31. Now, you could just divide that by the 3 people and say everyone pays about $10, right? That's $30, pays about $10. But a couple of problems with this. For starters, if everyone just pays $10, that's not enough to cover the bill. Also, when you go to a restaurant, you don't want to just pay $30.05. You want to add a tip. Adding a tip at a restaurant is a really, really important thing that you need to do. Okay? The waiters and waitresses at restaurants get paid lower than minimum wage. They make their living on tips. So that's why they work really hard on this. So tipping your waitress and your waiter is really, really important. So if everyone only pays $10, one, they're not going to have enough to cover the bill, and they forgot about their tip. So we're going to estimate what a reasonable amount would it be for a tip that we would totally give to the server. So for starters, it talks about, notice that the one thing is all these dinners are broken up, so they know who had what. So Carlos had the C, had the stir fry, and a juice. Anissa had the chicken Caesar and a juice. And Henry had the pasta special, the juice, and had ice cream. So if we look at this, if we wanted to figure out, you see how the 3 juices are all put together. We'd like to figure out what one juice would be. So we could go off and actually punch that in our calculator and go $5.60 divided by 3 and find out that the price of a juice costs $1.89. But we'd like to do that or figure this out without using our calculator. So we're going to estimate. So instead of talking about, well, it's about $5.60, what I would do is say that's about $6. And if you divide that by 3, then that's about $2. So you see this little sign, that means about, approximate. It's an estimate. It's not equal, it's about. So the juice is about $2. That's going to be very handy when we move on later on. Now let's talk about a 15% tip. That's a really nice tip. Some people say anywhere between 10 and 20% is reasonable. 15 is a really good estimate, and it's a nice number to work with. So how can we do some of this math in our head? Well, if the total is $31, the first thing I'm going to suggest is we're going to do the math in our head on $30 instead of $31. And we're going to calculate 15%. And we're going to do it the same as just how we did it in the warm-up. You're going to do 10% and then 5%. So first, the 10%, you'll divide by 10 or move the decimal 1 decimal place over. And that is going to go from $30, move it 1 decimal place over, and now $3. And then what's half of $3? $1.50. And those two, that's 10% and 5%, will come together for $4.50 as the tip. So on $30, you would estimate a good tip would be about $4.50. So then how much would you put all together? Well, you would take this $30 that you estimated plus your $4.50, and you would get about $34.50. But I don't imagine you're going to actually put that down on the tray. You might estimate and say, I'm going to give about $35. The reason you want to be careful there is because we estimated a little bit lower. So you'll want to make sure you raise it or estimate up to get about $35. So this is a good estimate on how much tip you should do on a bill that comes to $31. But here's the real question. How much should each of these people pay? We said if each person paid $10, then that wouldn't be enough. So we could take the $35 and divide it by 3 and say that that's about $12. So do you think it's fair that Carlos, Anissa, and Henry all paid $12? Well, if you're Anissa, I don't think you would think that's fair. The reason is Anissa bought the cheapest thing and had a drink, whereas Henry bought the most expensive thing, a drink, and had ice cream. So do you think it's fair that Henry and Anissa should pay the same amount? I don't think so. Henry should be paying more of this $35, and Anissa and Carlos should be paying less. So on page 35 or 45, we're actually going to go and calculate this. Actually, the book has an example of how to calculate Carlos on the bottom of page 44. So let's read what the book suggests we do, and then we'll go to page 45 and estimate it for Anissa and Henry. So what the book says, let's estimate how much Carlos should put in. So for starters, a really good strategy is instead of estimating with the actual price, you're going to round all these numbers. So for example, Carlos had the stir fry. That's $6.80. It's much easier to work with $7, rounded to $7, so let's say that. And he had the juice. And remember, we said the juice was $1.89 each, but we're going to round that to $2. So essentially, Carlos paid $9. Now, Carlos also has to pay tax. So some of that HST that's on the bill belongs to Carlos. So let's figure out 15% tax on Carlos. So we're going to estimate 15%, but we know from our other lessons that HST is only 13%. But 15% is a much easier one to calculate. So we're going to estimate 15%. Remember, 15%, we've done this a couple of times, is 10% and 5%. 10% of $9 is 0.9. Half of that is 5% and 45 cents. And add those up, and we're going to get $1.35. And you see in that speech bubble, it talks about this, that you can estimate the HST by doing 10% and half of that for 5% to make 15. It's a little bit more HST than you actually will pay, but anything extra you pay goes towards the waiter or the waitress. So it's worthwhile doing it 15%. All right, so that means Carlos's share of the bill is about $9, plus he pays about $1.35 in tax. But wait, we have to talk about his tip. Well, remember, said 15% is a good tip. Well, we just calculated and estimated HST was 15%. So if the tip is 15% and the HST is 15%, we get to use that number again. So his 15% tip will also be $1.35. So we can take this, the amount that Carlos pays as the $9 plus the $1.35 tax and the same $1.35 in tip. That's 15% and 15%. And then we would see that his total would be about 9 plus 1 is 11 plus 35 and 35 is 70 cents. And again, we don't want to be stingy with $11.70. Carlos should put in about $12. And again, we've estimated a little bit high, both on the cost and on HST. But all that means is you're giving a little bit more as a tip for your waiter or waitress, which I think is a great idea. Now, I'm going to organize this a little bit differently so that we can fill in all this information in that small little space on page 45. Because look at how much room they needed to do all of that on page 44, but they only give you a small space on page 45. So this is how I'm going to organize it. We're going to take the cost of the items, which is estimated at $7 and $2 to make $9. And then we're going to do our tax. Remember, our tax is 10%, which is 0.9, and half of that is 5% for a total of $1.35 in tax. The tip is going to be the same 15%, so we don't need to do this math again. We can just say the tip is also $1.35 and add these up just like we did here to get $11.70, which is about $12. You can even estimate this by doing $9 plus 1 plus 1, so 9 plus 1 is 10, plus 1 is 11, plus another 35 and 35 is about another dollar to get us to $12. Okay? So this is what we're going to fill in on page 45, even though it represents this whole bit of math. Okay? So let's turn now to page 45 and try and do how much Anissa should put in. So we're going to go back and see what Anissa had. So Anissa had the chicken Caesar salad, which is $5.28. I think I'm going to round that to about $5. And a juice, which we said was about $2. So if we go back here, Anissa is going to be about $5 plus $2 is about $7. Okay, definitely less than what Carlos had, and definitely will be a lot less than what Henry had. Let's calculate our tax and our tip. So remember, it's 15%. We're going to do 10% and 5%. 10% move one decimal place to the left is 70 cents. Half of that is 35. Add that together and we get $1.05. The tip is going to be exactly the same amount, 5 cents, or $1.05. And then we can add all this up, $7 plus $1 plus $1. That makes 7 plus 8, or plus 1 is 8, plus 1 is 9, and 5 and 5 cents is $9.10. But we're going to say that she can put in about $9. Now, I feel like I need to check that on my calculator. So let's take the $7, 7 times 0.15, and you get that $1.50. The tip is also going to be $1.50. So if we take $7 plus $1.50, or sorry, not $1.50, $1.05. I said $1.50, $1.05 plus $1.05, and we get $9.10, which we're going to estimate as $9. Okay, so let's try and do Henry now. So if you look at in your workbook at Henry, he had the most expensive thing. He had the pasta, and he had some ice cream, and he had a juice. So I'm going to estimate that as $7 and $3 and $2. And we're going to do $12 as an estimate. So you can pause the video right now and try this, the tax and the tip and total on your own, and then come back and see how you did. All right, so we're going to try this tax, 10% and 5%. 10%, we're going to move one decimal place to the left. That's $1.20. Half of that is 60. And if you add those together, you get $1.80. The tip is also going to be $1.80. And we add all this together. I'm going to estimate right now when I'm adding. That's 12. That's about $2. And that's about $2. So 12 plus 2 is 14, plus 2 is 16. I'm going to estimate it's about $16. Let's check and see what it is. So we've got $12 plus $1.80 plus $1.80, and it's $15.60, which was a really good estimate for about $16. Okay, so this is all stuff that you can do in your head, and now we're going to see how each of these add up. So if we estimate all three of them should pay, the textbook or the workbook on page 44 estimated that Carlos should pay about $12. We estimate that Anissa should pay about $9, and you estimated that Henry should pay about $16. So if we add all this up, then we're going to leave for the waiter or the waitress, the server, $37. And I wonder how that compared to our first estimate. Well, our first estimate was $35. So why is it a little bit different? Well, by doing this, it's a little bit more than what we had before because we rounded up a bunch of times. Also, we rounded up here, and we rounded up here for sure. And we said this was about $2. This was about $2. That gets you 16 when he should only maybe pay $15.60, or even a little bit less than that. But anytime you round up, what you're doing is just giving your server a little bit more tip and making sure that you have enough. Okay, here Anissa, she rounded down, but only 10 cents. But here we rounded it up 40 cents. So it made a difference. Okay, and all this rounding meant that we gave just a little bit more in this than we did on our first estimate. And again, and anything more goes toward the waiter or the waitress. Now, C tells us to do the exact purchase. I'm not going to ask you to do this. You can just copy this down if you want. But if we were calculating it exactly, Carlos had these two prices. We would do the tax, which is 13%, and multiply by 1.13 like we did in the last video. Then we do our tip, which is 15%, so times 1.15, and we would get a total of $11.41. That's the exact amounts he should pay, but if we estimate $12, it just means we're giving a little bit better tip. And you can check and see the other math for the other two people. Again, I'm not going to ask you to do this calculations in the calculator or anything. I'm just going to tell you what they are. But you see that Anissa's was about $9.32. We estimated about $9, so that's fair. And then Henry, he had a big bill. With his tax, it comes to $13.03. If he adds this 15% tax, he's going to get $14.98. We estimated $16. Well, that's good because remember, Anissa, we estimated a little bit low. Henry and Carlos are estimating a little bit higher, and that'll make sure that the server gets a good tip. Okay, so this process of finding 15%, doing 10 and 5, getting 15% and making them the same as the tip is a really great estimating tool. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you to replicate this on your quiz. Before we do that, at the bottom of page 45, there's a check your understanding. And it has Tainsley here. And Tainsley does something a little bit different. Instead of doing the 15%, she says, I'm going to add the tax and the tip separately. Instead of adding that separately, I'm going to do 30% in one step. So that's interesting. Is she correct? Because if you estimate your HST is 15%, your tax, and your tip is 15%, wouldn't that be 30%? And that's true. So because HST, you're in this example, we estimated 15%, and we estimated 15% tip, you could just do 30% on it. Now the difference is usually when you get a bill, you get the tax already there, okay? But you could do this 30%, and it would do all those steps in one. So we're going to test this out. It says create a bill for Tainsley and her friend. Well, actually, we're just going to ignore that. We're going to pretend that Tainsley gets the same amount as Henry. Okay, so we're going to pretend that she gets the same thing, but we're going to use this 30% method and see if we get the same answer as Henry. So if we did the same thing, we're going to pretend that Tainsley also gets the $7 thing and the $3 thing and the $2 thing to get $12. But instead of doing two 15%, we're going to try and do a 30%. And how are we going to do 30%? Well, we're going to do 10%. So that's $1.20. Remember, move one decimal place to the left. And 30% would just be times 3. So how do we do that times 3? Well, $1 times 3 is $3, and 20 cents times 3 is 60 cents. So that must mean that $3.60 is a good estimate of both of these 15%, both the tax and the tip. And so Tainsley would do $12 plus $3.60 and get about $15.60, which is about $16. And if you notice, this method gets us the exact same method as Henry. Okay? So the workbook is suggesting we do it separately, but you could also combine it into one step and make it 30%. Okay? But what we're going to do now is go back and we're going to follow this example, but we're going to do it on a new person. Okay? So when you go to your quiz, remember our menu from last video. We're going to do it on a brand new person. So we're going to pretend somebody comes along and orders a hamburger, a Caesar salad, and a small juice. So I've done the rounding for you and said the hamburger is about $3, and the Caesar salad is about $2, and the juice is about $1. So in your quiz, you're going to start with that amount. And you're going to have to, first question is going to ask you to add those up. So you'll add up the hamburger, the Caesar salad, and the small juice, all estimates, and get your estimated price here. Next, the next question is going to ask you to do the red part, do 10% and 5%, and add it to figure out your tax. The next question after that will ask you to do the tip, which will be the purple part, which will be exactly the same as what you answered in the red part. Then finally, you're going to take this number plus approximately this number plus approximately that number to get your approximate here. So in this case, we did 12 plus $2 is 16. So you're going to have to figure out your total here, plus your approximate tax, plus your approximate tip to get an approximate answer. And all of this you're going to do in the Google quiz. This graphic is going to be there to help remind you how to do it. So you can follow this example, but do it on this order: a hamburger, a Caesar salad, and a small juice. All right, so that's it for today and for the week. And we're done section 2.2. So now you can go off and try the Google quiz. Make sure you mark this video as done because you've watched the video and filled out the workbook, and then go and try the quiz, and you'll be done for the week. Thanks very much and good luck.